Hello, children, and welcome back to your English class with me, Sir LS. Today, our lesson will be question and answers from the lesson Robinson Crusoe discovers a footprint. But before we begin our lesson, I just want to tell you a brief story again about Robinson Crusoe. During the story, we will be doing some readings, so I want you to get ready with your marigold textbook. Turn to Robinson Crusoe discovers a footprint. Right, so the story goes like this. Robinson Crusoe and his family were one of the middle class families in England in the 17th century. And as a young boy and as a kid, Robinson Crusoe was interested in traveling abroad. He was fascinated by the sea, traveling in a ship. He wanted to become an adventurer or he wanted to become an explorer. But his parents had another plan for him. They wanted him to study law, become a lawyer instead. But Robinson Crusoe did not obey his parents, and one day, without the knowledge of his parents, means without the permission of his parents, he boarded a ship, went off to London. There he settled down in London for a while. He took up some business there, and then he became quite successful in his business. But luckily, during one of his venture at sea, the ship that he boarded was attacked by pirates. Pirates means robbers and thieves in the sea. So the ship that Robinson Crusoe boarded was attacked by the pirates, and they took him and another members of the ship as slaves for 2 years. They kept them in Sally prison. So they were taken as slaves for 2 years, but one fine day Robinson Crusoe and two of his inmates in the prison were sent to go out fishing. They were sent out on a small boat to do some fishing, and while they were in the sea, they met this Portuguese sailor ship, and after explaining everything, the captain of the ship took them in, rescued them, and dropped them in Brazil. There in Brazil, Robinson Crusoe settled down, started his business again, and he was quite successful again. And he started his sugar plantation and cotton plantation. So he became quite successful and he made lots of money from his business. But it seems this business was not enough for him, meaning that money that he earned from this business, sugar plantation and cotton plantation, was not enough for him. So he began to study this slave trade. During those times, slavery was one of the best business in the market, because slavery used to fetch them good money. So Robinson Crusoe was also interested in this slave trade, because the money that he made from cotton and sugar plantation was not enough. So he started to study the slave trade. Here they used to catch black men from Africa, and then they will bring them back to European countries like England, Portugal, Spain, etc. And they will sell them in the market. They are forcefully taken from Africa, slaves, and they will be shipped to European countries and sell them in the market. That's how business goes. And during those times, during the 17th century, aeroplane was not invented yet. So the best means for transport was through the sea on a ship. So they used to go to Africa, bring home some slaves, the black people like this. They will keep them in chains. They will bring them back to England, Portugal, Spain, and sell them in the market as slaves. And they used to make them do hard works, treated them very harshly. They are not treated like human beings, and moreover, they are treated more like animals. So here, as you can see, they took as many slaves as possible in one boat, in one ship here, and shipped them all from Africa to England and another European countries. This is not normal. They don't have any space at all. It would be very hard for the slaves to breathe here. Such a tight situation like this. But they don't care about this. All they cared about was money, the money that they could get from the slave business. Here, it's the upper deck of the ship. The slaves are rowing the ship or the boat, and underneath the ship, below the deck, slaves are being shoved inside, kept as many slaves as possible. And real this is the real picture of a slave taken during those times. And when they bring the slave back from Africa, they used to sell them in the market. They are auctioned in the market. I want you to look up in your dictionary about this word auction. I want you to find it on your own. All right, they are auctioned, and sometimes they are treated harshly, and they were beaten for nothing, for no reason. They will do as they please with the slaves, the black people, and they treated them like animals. Here they will sell them. This is a slave lady, a black lady with a baby. The businessmen will buy the slaves and they will do whatever work they like, right? Sometimes they used to make them work in the cotton field under the plantation. That's how the slaves are treated. Here, this is the real picture of slaves during those times, during the 17th century. It's the real picture of the slaves who were shipped from Africa. So Robinson Crusoe, he began to take up this slave business, and he partnered with some of his friends, and they boarded a ship to go to Africa to get those slaves. But they were caught in a thunderstorm. Thunderstorm means a very wild wind with rain, thunders, and lightnings like that. So they were washed in the sea by thunderstorm, and the ship was destroyed. And the ship was destroyed, and it was washed ashore in one of the islands. And luckily, Robinson Crusoe was the only survivor from the shipwreck. So he was the only survivor. And after 2 or 3 days, Robinson Crusoe went back to the ship which was destroyed, and he found a dog and a cat. The name of the dog was Rex, and the name of the cat Sam, and one parrot. And he gathered as much food as possible and as much things which he will be needing for survival. He used to gather some stocks from the wrecked ship, and then he will take it to the island and make a home for himself. Here, Robinson Crusoe made a home, and he dug a cave and made a home in the cave, and he called it My Castle. There he lived with his dog, cat, and the parrot. And he also kept a journal. Journal means a book where we write the story of our life. Alright, it's like a diary. Here, this is the journal book, and then but during those times, pens were not invented yet. The pens that we use today are not there during those times. It was not invented yet, so they used these feathers as a pen, and they call it a quill. They will dip it in the ink, and they will write it down in a piece of paper. And another thing was, as there was no human being to talk to, Robinson Crusoe began to talk to God, and pray to God, and he's found his religion in that island. So let's stop there for a while and let's do some reading. Here. At last I returned home very frightened, looking behind me after every 2 or 3 steps, mistaking every bush and tree to be a man. When I came to my cave, which I called my castle, I ran inside it as if I was being chased. I do not remember whether I used the ladder or went in by the hole in the rock, which I called the door. I ran for cover faster than any animal could run. I did not sleep that night. The more I thought about what I had seen, the more afraid I became. I thought it could be one of the savages of the mainland who had wandered out to the sea in a small boat. Luckily, I was not on shore at that time, but what if he had seen my boat? If he had seen the boat, he would have realized that someone lived on the island and would soon return with others to kill and eat me. And so I lay fearful for many days and prayed for protection. Here, keep this in mind. It's going to be important for your answer. In doing so, I was much comforted and began to going out to investigate. But even now, as I went forward, I looked behind me frequently because I was still very frightened. However, as I went about for 2 or 3 days and saw nothing, I became a little bolder. I decided to go down to the shore again and examine the footprint once more. I decided to measure it with my own footmark. As I came closer to the footprint, I realized that it could be I realized that it could not be my footprint because I had not come to this part of the beach since a long time. Secondly, as I placed my foot alongside that footprint, it seemed larger than my own. My fear returned. I went home again believing that there was someone there. The island was inhabited. So, the lesson that we have here is only a small bit of the whole story of Robinson Crusoe. It's a small extract from the story of Robinson Crusoe. It's just one incident. Right. So after he stayed in the island for about 10, 12 years, he began to wander about places which he had not gone before. And he found footprints there. So he was frightened when he saw the footprint because he thought he was alone in the island. So he had many thoughts, bad thoughts, like what if this is a man, or what if he comes to kill me, or something like that. So he ran home and he was very afraid and think that the trees and the bushes were men chasing him. So he ran as fast as he could back to his cave. And he stayed in his cave for another 3 days and prayed for protection. But he became a bit bolder because no one came to chase him. So he went out again to investigate. So while he was investigating, he found lots of human bones scattered here and there in that part of the island. So he came to learn that there were cannibals. These cannibals used to come on a little boat and they will do their rituals like this cannibal dance. They will dance around doing their rituals, and after that they will eat the flesh of the human being. Here they will have at least 1 or 2 victims. Alright, so they will eat them, and after eating the flesh of the human being, after finishing their ritual, they go back wherever they lived. And Robinson Crusoe used to spy on them, watch them from a far off distance, and study what the cannibals were doing. And here, this is the real boat of cannibals. It's a real photo. When the cannibals came to the island to feast on human flesh, they will have 1 or 2 victims whom they are supposed to eat. Alright. But one day, one of their victims, which was a little boy, ran away, somehow escaped from the clutches of the cannibals. So Robinson Crusoe, like I said, he used to watch them. So he was there watching them, and he saw the boy running away, and he killed the men who chased him, and he rescued the boy. And so after rescuing the boy was very, very happy that he was rescued by Robinson Crusoe, and he gave himself as his personal slave. And he named him Friday as well, because he rescued the boy on Friday, so he gave him a name called Friday. So Friday and Robinson Crusoe spent another 8 years, and during this time Robinson Crusoe used to teach Friday English, and they began to learn how to communicate with each other. So that's how they lived their life. And Robinson Crusoe and Friday lived together for another 8 years on the island. But one day an English ship landed on the island, and the captain saw them. When Robinson Crusoe explained about what they were doing in the island, captain took them in and he rescued them and took them back to England. And Robinson Crusoe got married after coming back to England, and he started the same business again, sugar plantation and cotton plantation. And he had 3 kids with his wife, 2 boys and one little girl. So he took up the sugar and cotton plantation again, and he became a rich businessman till the end of his days. Right, that's about it. That's the story about Robinson Crusoe. So for your home assignment, note, answer all the questions on your own. You can also do the answers with the help of the hints. Here I'm going to give you some hints. Alright, question number 1 is, what made Robinson Crusoe think that the print on the ground was a footprint? Here I will give you the hint from the textbook. Here's the hint. So, but please do it on your own. Alright. Question number 2 is, why was Robinson Crusoe afraid when he looked at the bushes and trees? Here's another hint. And question number 3, why did Robinson Crusoe pray when he saw the footprint? Here also another hint. You'll find the answers here and do the answer on your own. Alright, that's all for today. And I want you to do your home assignment, and you don't need to submit it because we will check it together in the next class. So that's all for today. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.